I survived 100 days as a tribal colony during the zombie apocalypse in Rimworld. Through the high highs and the low lows. This is one wild ride. Here are the 5 tribesmen we're starting with, who also happen to be cannibals. They traveled to a new land to prepare for the impending zombie apocalypse. Who will survive and who will succumb to the undead hordes? This is Eric with Pixel Rookie, and I hope you enjoy my story of surviving 100 days in the zombie apocalypse. Upon arriving at their destination, the group of 5 colonists took a moment to survey their surroundings. Trees and grassy plains dotted the landscape with mountains and ruins in the distance. On the horizon to the south, they noticed an area that was largely enclosed with the ruins of a structure that they decided would be a suitable enclosure for their shelter. With only a few days before the zombie outbreak was set to spread to their new home, they knew they needed to build their defenses and set up camp. Working together, they hauled what little supplies they had to their new base and started to plan out where they would build their walls to fend off the zombie horde. With an air of anxiety looming over the group, they got to work chopping trees for wood and sowing the fields with rice to extend their food supply. They also agreed that a hoopstone ring would help keep the spirits high as they toiled away at building their new home. The sun was low on the horizon when they finished storing their supplies, putting a roof over their heads, and sowing crops. With only so much time in a day, the 5 survivors begrudgingly laid down on the hard ground to get some much-needed rest. Beds would have to wait for now. The following morning, the colonists awoke with a renewed sense of vigor and began hacking away at any trees they could find. Wood was imperative for their expansion plans. They also continued making their base feel a bit more like home, and there was an air of positivity about as they settled in for their second night, at least until a scream wrenched the air from Rego. Gutworms were slowly eating away at his insides. Hopefully with a little bed rest, he'd make a full recovery. They all had hope that no more illness would befall them until... The colonists were awoken by moans and grunts from Lousa and Weasel. They both contracted the plague. The nervousness crept back in for their comrades as they realized Weasel was in rough shape. They couldn't afford to lose anyone with the zombies a mere 2 days away. Weasel's condition was cemented in the back of their minds as they continued hunting for food and deforesting the surrounding area. They'd need to keep a close eye on his condition. After building a butcher station and kitchen to prepare wild game, the colonists continued onward with their preparations. Weasel forced himself out of bed to go hunt for Muffalo, but despite his best efforts, one of the Muffalo went into a rage and trampled him. Rego rushed to his rescue and carried him back to the base to tend to his wounds, where he also treated Lousa's bout of the plague. Lousa had a close call with death, but it looked like she'd recover before the plague took her. Weasel, on the other hand, had succumbed to his injuries in the night. As cannibals, they can't waste a good meal, and Cockroach jumped into action to butcher their fallen companion. The mood was tense as the 5th day dawned after having lost a survivor in the first few days. The zombies had yet to arrive, which didn't bode well, but at least Weasel's sacrifice provided them with some additional nourishment. Being cannibals had its perks. Lousa finally reached immunity and was resting up, and since they were going to be here for a while, they decided to name their faction the Kinship of Rook. Has a nice ring to it, right? And they named their base, We Will Make It 100 Days. Hopefully. Early on the 6th day, the time finally came and the undead were approaching. In its excitement to greet their new visitors, Sorcerer, the colony dog, tore through one of the outer walls and escaped. Puzzled about his behavior, the colonists repaired the wall. It'll be vital to keep themselves protected from here on out. Thankfully, the first wave of zombies didn't have a taste for dog. In the meantime, Lousa developed the tough trait after her days-long battle with the plague. She breathed a sigh of relief, realizing that this might help keep her alive in the weeks to come. There was some more soil below their rice field, and they used that to begin growing more heal root to ensure they don't run out of medicine. On the 7th day, they were laying low and constructed a research bench, as they would need this to progress their tech. Electricity would be extremely helpful, but would take a long time to research. While digging into the mountain to expand their storage room, a chill ran up her spine as Lousa discovered an ancient danger. Yeah, they're just gonna leave that be for now. Some visitors arrived, and the timing was good since there weren't any zombies out at the moment. Looking over Frog, one of the 2 visitors, they saw that he was a strong melee fighter and had good planting and crafting skills. He would be a great addition to the colony. Maybe they would open up their home to these visitors for a few minutes. Oh, and they needed to make special accommodations for their new guest. The group readied themselves silently and crept towards their target. Rego pounced and was able to subdue and capture their prisoner. As the sound of the scuffle reached them, Lousa and Cockroach sprang into action and made quick work of his companion. They stared longingly at his lifeless body, thinking of the meal to come. They wondered if the Kinship of Rook's secret greeting of visitors getting brutally beaten to death would reach the ears of their enemies as they got ready for bed after a long day. Disappointment spread throughout the sleeping chambers on the morning of the 8th day as they realized their anticipated breakfast of human flesh had started to turn into a zombie. Zombies just didn't make good eats. Playing it safe to avoid an outbreak inside their walls, they decided to seal off the body for the time being. Wait, what? Where'd it go? Okay, well, never mind then. To help make their living quarters a little more bearable, they made a wooden sculpture. It wasn't much, but honestly, anything was better than nothing at this point. With most of the trees already cut down, the left side of the base was used to grow more trees, since wood was going to be harder to get as the zombie hordes grew. Which brings us to day 9, where they planned out another wall, which would give them more space for building and farming. This would also provide another layer of defense so they can fall back into the innermost area if the walls were breached by the undead. They received a new quest called the Ambushed Praetor, who needed rescuing from a manhunting snow hare. Right. Cockroach accepted the quest, and Nosine joined the colony temporarily. Moments later, the ferocious hare entered the valley and began its assault on Nosine, who turned around and beat the crap out of the hare. But we still, totally helped him out. Right before Nosine's shuttle arrived, they successfully recruited Frog to become a member of their colony. Nosine thanked the colony for their hospitality and left, which gave them the opportunity for a bestowing ceremony for Cockroach. The shuttle returned with more Empire troops and the ceremony began. Once it concluded, Cockroach became the colony's Psycaster. Apparently the bestowing ceremony was so amazing and possibly the greatest moment in Cockroach's life, and because of this, he became a nudist. Okay then. Off his clothes went. He had the Wild Speaker casting tree unlocked, and his first ability was Bramble Maze, which might come in handy in the future. To conclude their busy day, Rego cheerfully made fun of Rachabella's face and they became lovers. Rego obviously had some serious game. Things were looking up for the tribesmen. On day 10, plans were made to expand their base into the outer area. They were a little too confined in their current living space and needed bedrooms of their own. As they were trying to finish the outer wall, a zombie caught Lalsa from behind unexpectedly. Terrified, she and the other colonists fled back into the inner wall and locked the door behind them. They quickly sealed off the door with another wooden wall. They planned to lay low for a bit until the zombies cleared out. A group of travelers were passing by and, well, it didn't look great for them. Some bulk good traders arrived that night, and again, things were a little dicey for our traveling friends. Fires burned and gunfire roared as they tried to fend off the never-ending horde. Okay, so on day 11, the zombies were still right outside of the inner wall, and they couldn't expand further until this was dealt with. Frog entered the narrow hallway and opened the door, immediately attracting the zombies' attention. A few well-placed swings of the knife and it was down. They were able to pick off the other zombies from afar, and it looked like the coast was clear again for now. While there was still chaos going on from the Bulk's good caravan, they were able to focus on finishing their outside perimeter. Now that this was complete, another tree growing zone was planted since they were running dangerously low on wood. On day 12, a nature shrine was built for Cockroach, where he could meditate and grow his psi-casting abilities. They also found some zombie extract, which they could use to create a serum if someone got infected, which could potentially come in handy later on. Since the outer perimeter was secured, it meant they could build individual bedrooms for everyone. They could eventually move into bedrolls instead of sleeping on the ground to add to their comfort. The first room was assigned to Rochabella and Rego, since they were a couple now. Things were calm on day 13 as they finished constructing other buildings. They also planned out a separate building where they could perform rituals. Their food supply was quite low, and even though more rice was almost ready to be harvested, they'd need more. A large new growing zone was made and they planned on growing corn. On day 14, a heat wave hit the area. They had to work quickly to harvest the rice before anyone got a heat stroke, and early on day 15, Cockroach already had extreme heat stroke. They needed to build passive coolers, but they were out of wood. The group was trying to create a third walled-off area, but had to prioritize gathering more wood until every room had a passive cooler in it. Fortunately, Cockroach recovered, but Rego had a mental break and was going off on an insulting spree. On day 16, they tried to stay cool while still taking shifts outside to build the additional wall. With sweat dripping into her eyes, Lalsa was once again ambushed by a zombie as she worked on the wall. She swung around, knife in hand, and thrust it at the zombie's head. Over and over, she stabbed it until it finally collapsed in a heap. She breathed a sigh of relief after not sustaining any major injuries from the ambush. In the early morning hours of day 17, Lalsa scrambled back to base as a horde of undead followed close on her heels. They pounded and scratched at the door, but the base's defenses were holding. For now. Day 18 brought good news to the colony as Rochabella became pregnant. It was a breath of fresh air to see new life sprouting in their home. But Lalsa was also battling with a bout of nausea as she worked on upgrades to their base. Maybe her zombie encounter took a bigger toll than she realized. Only time would tell. On the morning of the 19th day, Cockroach gave a speech to the other colonists to change his role. Enough colonists attended, and after that, Cockroach became their new thinker. Cockroach smiled to himself with contentment as the colonists filed out after his speech. Next up was Lalsa, who delivered a compelling speech to the group and was proclaimed to be the profane chief. The crowd cheered for their new leader as the ceremony ended. Day 20 was uneventful other than finishing the wall of their latest expansion, allowing them more room for their fields. Day 21 led to more farm expansion, crop selection, and a little bit of peace. On day 22, the colonists toiled away in the hot sun to harvest their crops. It was good to see the fruits of their labor take shape. The time had come for Frog to be converted to the Nuchidian doctrine. He was fairly confident in his own beliefs already, but the colony would be a lot more cohesive if he officially converted. Apprehensive about the ceremony, Frog listened intently as the rest of the colony outlined their beliefs, and after about an hour or two, Frog decided he would continue to ponder the ways of the Nuchidian doctrine going forward. He wasn't opposed to learning more, but he wasn't ready yet. Day 24's harvesting activities were interrupted by a loud clanging at their western wall. The colonists spun around and scrambled back to safety as an armored zombie barreled through their defenses. Cockroach launched a bramble maze towards their incoming threat, and the others got into defensive positions as the armored menace broke down their door. Ruchabella nooked an arrow and let it fly at the armored zombie while Rego threw spears, but they bounced off his armor without much effort. One arrow rang true as it tore off the zombie's helmet though. Frog saw his opportunity and rushed forward with his knife, swiping at its neck. The blade found flesh and the zombie crumbled in the doorway, but not before completely destroying Frog's left shoulder with a fearsome bite. More zombies poured through the opening as Cockroach rushed forward to take Frog's place. After suffering multiple bites and scratches during the scuffle, the last of this wave of zombies lay motionless in the doorway. The injured colonists retreated to beds to receive treatment for their injuries. Rego jumped out of bed early on day 25 and began wrapping Cockroach's injuries. He needed to be tended to immediately to prevent infection. After heading to the field to continue the harvest, Rego jumped as another bang along the western wall made him tremble. Not another one, he thought. Sweat dripped down his brow as he contemplated if they were prepared enough for another dance with death. Rushing back to safety, Cockroach rushed to fix the doors that had been broken during yesterday's scuffle. Louse, on the other hand, was stuck in that side of the wall and instead barricaded herself in the ritual room for safety. Fortunately, this zombie horde roamed too long and started to decay until they completely withered away. After the threat was neutralized, Cockroach ran back to bed. He could feel the infection from yesterday's injuries taking hold and realized he had about 9 hours left until he was one of them. Although it would make his duties more difficult, the decision was made to amputate the infected arm. Working quickly to harvest some heal root, Ruchabella helped Rego prepare for the amputation. Cockroach screamed in pain as the cold steel of Rego's saw went through the skin and bone alike. He was bleeding profusely, but alive. The colonists decided on day 26 to continue tunneling into the mountain to make space for a nature shrine. On the morning of their 27th day, a disgraced officer by the name of Nicholas Sidonus reached out for help after deserting the Empire of God. A loyalty squad was hot on his trail, and he was looking for refuge. The colonists weighed their options and decided the risk was worth the reward to have Sidonus join their cause and accepted his proposal. Sidonus ran towards the protection of their camp from the west as the colonists assessed his abilities. He was passionate about shooting and mining and was good with animals, but had the wimp trait. Ugh. Cockroach continued to persuade Frog to convert his religion, which was still unsuccessful. Frog then threw a tantrum later in the evening, smashing everything he could find. Feeling drowsy, and the constant attempts to convert him had finally taken their toll. Lausa decided on the morning of the 28th day that the colonists could use a leader's speech. She had to keep morale up in the colony. The speech was a wild success. Their latest member, Sidonus, even had a social inspiration. It was so good that he wanted some lovin' after hearing what Lausa had to say. Construction continued on the nature shrine and enclosure on day 29. Any tribal Psi-caster of the group would be able to use the shrine while meditating to increase their Psi focus gain once it was completed. Day 30 started in a chaotic whirlwind of Muffalo rage as the nearby herd was ravaged by zombies in the area. A fire had also started to spread just north of their base. With the enormous number of zombies lingering outside their wall, they made the decision to let the Muffalo destruction and the fire burn unchecked. In the early hours of the morning on day 31, a medieval slave named Praz crash-landed in a transport pod nearby. There was nothing they could do for Praz, and he became a zombie not long after his crash. Not much happened on day 32, but Ruchabella did suffer some minor burns, which Rego was quick to attend to. Cockroach hit an exciting milestone and became a level 2 Psi-caster too. This allowed him to start working on his Protector Psi-cast tree. On day 33, around noon, Ruchabella came down with a case of food poisoning. She groaned as the nausea incapacitated her. This wasn't good because, surprise, she was actually in her 3rd trimester of pregnancy, and because of this, the colonists were worried and Rego rushed to her aid. Around 3 a.m. on day 34, a group of Imperials from the Empire of God arrived and were preparing to raid the colonist base. They managed to avoid the surrounding zombies for a short time before they were ambushed. With such few numbers, they were quickly overrun and forced to flee. In the meantime, Cockroach offered a word of prayer to Ruchabella to help ease her food poisoning. And as if the illnesses couldn't get much worse, Sidonus became infected with the plague and had to go rest alongside Ruchabella. Our trusted Dr. Rego ran to tend to Sidonus. A little while later, while trying to get some food in her stomach, Rochabella had to be rescued again after collapsing from her food poisoning. Lausa carried her to her bed for more rest. The following day, Rochabella and Rego's food poisoning came back with a vengeance after Cockroach failed to convert Frog yet again. On the bright side, Cockroach did gain another level of psycasting. He learned the word of immunity in the process and used it on Sidonis, who immediately needed to be rescued again after falling out of bed. Day 36 was a day to be celebrated. Rochabella and Rego got married on the morning of the 6th of September. It was a joyous occasion that brought everyone together, except for Frog, who decided he'd rather continue with his work. What a buzzkill. Day 37 was fairly typical for the colonists. Cockroach continued working on his psycasting abilities, and the other colonists toiled away in the fields. The next day, their crop of heelroot was finally ready to be harvested. They need every bit of it they could get their hands on for the days to come. Frog was once again unable to be converted to the rest of the group's religion, but they weren't going to give up on him. Early in the morning of the 39th day, Rochabella went into labor. With a recent bout of food poisoning, they needed to be extra cautious about the delivery. Her labor quickly escalated from mild to debilitating as her screams pierced the air. Rego stood by her side and did what he could to help ease her pain, and not long after, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy named Tasca. His cries brought hope to the other colonists. Meanwhile, through his constant meditation, Cockroach gained the psycast ability of being able to regrow limbs. This would certainly help with Frog's destroyed shoulder from his earlier bout with zombies. It would take some time to regrow his limbs, but he would be as good as new once the process was completed. Cockroach also used his new limb regrow ability on Rego as well. Not as serious as Frog's injury, but Rego was certainly ecstatic to be getting his left fourth toe back. Nothing really happened on day 40. Anyways, kind of like the day before, day 41 didn't have much going on, but some zombies did try to fight a mega sloth who kicked some serious zombie butt. Otherwise, it was a pretty typical day. Day 42 was met with yet another armored zombie breaking down parts of their western wall. The colonists ran into a defensive position amongst the trees in their tree farm. Cockroach launched his bramble maze to disorient the armored zombie. The cracks of gunshots filled the tree farm as they fired repeatedly at the zombies breaching their defenses. As the first zombies went down, Sidonis had the only advantage on the armored zombie and relentlessly fired shot after shot at it. Finally, they managed to destroy the zombie's armor and then rushed in to fix the broken wall before the other zombies got to them. Lausa was almost caught off guard again by a stray zombie as it slipped past her defenses, but she turned to face the monster, knife in hand. The zombie ignored her, however, and ran towards the colonists' bedrooms where it let out a horrifying shout, which was enough to stun and disable Lausa. The other colonists heard the disturbance and rushed in to help Lausa, only to run headfirst into her attacker in the doorway to their main base. Sidonis dispatched it easily enough, but it was a solemn reminder of how bad things could get if they let their guard down. Lausa repaired the walls as quickly as she could, while off in the distance listened to what sounded like an epic battle between a guinea pig and a zombie. Lausa silently cheered for the poor guinea pig, but in the end, its squeals were extinguished. Just before midnight, Cockroach finally succeeded in converting Frog to the doctrine. The victory gave him confidence in his role amongst the other colonists. Again, pretty slow day, but they did repair a few of their walls. On day 44, Cockroach gained yet another psycast ability and contemplated focusing on the empath skill tree. The colonists also had the chance to continue their research into electricity. A large pack of zombies began approaching the base from the northwest on day 45 as the colonists worked together on their food storage and research. They weren't too worried about them. At least not yet. Day 46 brought a welcome surprise as a bartender named Phalaris crashed in a transport pod near the camp. Never mind. He ran away. Well, there goes lunch. Things were normal on day 47 until a group of raiders crash-landed right in the middle of their storage room via transport pods. Everyone yelped in surprise as they rushed outside to gather their defenses. The intruders immediately started destroying their supplies and burning whatever they could find. One was carrying a sniper rifle, which wasn't going to be easy to deal with for the colonists. Cockroach bravely sprinted forward to see if he could subdue any of the attackers, and then was like, nope, and ran back outside to get his companions. In a tight formation, they rushed at the first attacker and incapacitated him with ease. Lining back up, they rushed through the kitchen door and Lausa managed to sneak up behind one of the pillagers and execute him with her knife. Meanwhile, Sidonis exchanged shots with the attacker until she rushed them in a last-ditch effort. The rest of the colonists surrounded their foe, taking them out, then rushed to put out the fire in the storeroom. At least one good thing came from this attack. Lausa was able to upgrade her knife to a sword, and Rego would now be wielding the sniper rifle that they looted from their attackers. They were also able to capture a prisoner from the raid and decided he didn't need his shield belt anymore, or the rest of his armor for that matter. In the wake of the attack, they also performed a conversion ritual for Sidonis. Shortly afterwards, as Sidonus was cooking, one of the raiders turned into a zombie, but was able to be dispatched quickly. Since the raiders burned down their wooden research benches, they replaced them with newer, sturdier tables for research. Their stockpile room was also almost completely full of food and supplies at this point, which was a good sign. Another armored zombie decided to attack from the northwest on day 49. The colonists have dealt with this before though and were ready for the scuffle, waiting for their enemy to break through the wall. A cold snap had started to kill some of their crops and was making everyone's teeth chatter, so they built some bonfires to help deal with the weather and encroaching hypothermia. Meanwhile, a mechanoid cluster landed nearby. This could potentially be dangerous in a variety of ways, so the colonists need to work out how to deal with it. While the colonists donned warmer clothes, they continued waiting for the stupid armored zombie to actually break through the wall. And while waiting, Sidonus had a mental break from the stress. A slaughtering of murder ritual was performed on the afternoon of day 50. The speech was meaningful, and the killing technique that Cockroach used was precise and dignified. This would definitely boost the mood around the colony for the next week. The sacrifice would also make for a tasty lunch. Except for Sidonus, who actually wasn't a cannibal. Oops. Construction of the base expansion continued the following day, along with some exciting news about their fearless leader. Sidonus decided to tell Lausa a story about entertainment, and she was wooed. Some lovin' in such a dark Rimworld was always a good thing. Now all they needed was a big enough bed. Or bedroll anyways. Lausa worked on installing floors in the bedrooms to kick off day 52. It was nice for things to get a little cozier for once. Potted plants would also add to the aesthetic. A cow decided to join their colony and then... Oh yeah, then a new cow was mauled to death by a zombie. So much for that. Apparently the new bedroll for Sidonus and Lausa was super effective since she found out she was pregnant on day 53. The colonists also mysteriously learned of the legendary relic of Nushadian doctrine nearby. They had to keep an eye out for the non-religious LMG, and if they could find it, it'd attract more followers from near and far. For now, they had to bide their time and wait for more information about this legendary treasure. The colonists held a special party on the rainy 54th day as they watched in amazement as lanterns slowly circled above them. Realizing the mech node to their north was starting to cause trouble, Rego hid behind some cover and fired a single... Holy crap, Rego almost got blown up by retaliatory fire. Rego swore as a couple bullets from the mini slugger dug into his arm and retreated back to safety. Before he could make it to the door, the long-range sluggers hit him twice more and downed him. He needed medical attention. Stat. Frog bravely ran across the open field to grab Rego and bring him back to safety, all while being peppered by gunfire. He too almost made it to safety before being gunned down. He somehow managed the strength to get back up and continue dragging Rego to safety amongst the mortars and bullets raining down on him. With little time to spare, they designated sleeping spots so the wounded could be tended to. Time would tell if they'd recover from their extensive injuries. The colonists watched helplessly from safety as a visitor running for safety by the mechs was blown to pieces by an exploding bullet early on day 55. They also lamented the loss of their only sniper rifle as it was engulfed in flames from the blast. Lausa dealt with some morning sickness while she worked, but otherwise the day progressed without incident. The colonists awoke to a raid early on day 56. They waited expectantly for the raiders to arrive when they noticed that the mechs to the north were helping dispatch them as well. Well, that was until one of the raiders apparently had superhuman dodging abilities and destroyed 2 of the turrets with a... Make that 3 turrets with a knife. Just kidding. Who needs guns when you can destroy all 4 turrets with a darn knife? Seriously, what are the odds? The raiders, with a renewed sense of vigor, began preparing their assault as Lausa set up traps to hopefully incapacitate them. The rest of the colonists gathered under cover to hopefully catch the raiders unaware as they inevitably breached their defenses. One by one, they pressed down the hallway, only to get picked off. Thankfully, 2 survived that they could use for their cannibalistic rituals. Or maybe they might be useful to the colony. Their fate hadn't been decided yet, but their time would come. At the very least, they'd have plenty of human meat for the days ahead. Cockroach readied his trusty butcher's knife and got to work. With this much meat, they even decided to build a second butcher table to handle the load. Another mech cluster, this one requiring a caravan to deal with, had formed to their north by day 57. It was going to blanket their whole region and poison until it was dealt with. The colonists began to wonder if they had the firepower to deal with such a threat, or if they'd have to deal with the poison in the meantime. Howls echoed across the fields as more and more zombies sprang up from the dusty grounds, and another armored zombie broke down a wall in their northeast expansion. The colonists banded together and lobbed arrows at their attackers as it slowly inched towards them. Enough of the arrows found its target, and the group cheered as their undead foe lay lifeless on the ground after its failed assault. Not much happened on day 58. Anyways, Lausa went out to finish off the mech threat to their north on day 59 and finished off the psychic suppressor. Cockroach went on an alcohol binge after having a mental break, but since he couldn't find any alcohol, he munched on some Twinkies instead. A caravan was planned to go take care of the poison mech threat, and it was determined that Lausa would be the one to take care of it. Dang, what a leader she is. A group of visitors also passed by, but the colony had other things to worry about this time. Lausa arrived at her destination on the morning of their 60th day. She surveyed her surroundings and crept up towards the mech. As she was circling behind the turrets, she stumbled across the toxic spewer. Excited about her luck, she hacked away at the spewer until it was nothing more than a pile of rubble. Without even alerting the mechs, she crept away from them to escape unnoticed and began her trek back home. She'd be back around the following morning. Speaking of back home, April, a teenage space refugee, crash-landed not far from the colony. Frog ran out to capture her and bring her back to their makeshift jail. April had decent stats, so Rego got to work converting April to their cause. Lausa returned the following day, and everyone was relieved to see her in one piece. Otherwise, not a lot happened on day 61. Nothing like the taste of fire in the morning, thought Frog as he woke up on the 62nd day. Frog, the jerk, the pyromaniac, decided to set everything on fire that he could find that morning. Who needs friends when you can just light stuff on fire, baby? Who needs shelter? Fire, baby! Anyways, after Frog's fire-starting spree, they decided a public execution of Vassalo from their last raid was in order. He found the exact intersection of messing around and finding out. The crowd cheered in gleeful vindication as the justice and power coursed through their veins. They butchered him up for dinner, and that was the end of Vassalo the Raider. Some visitors off in the distance ran into some zombies and probably died. Do they not know there's zombies out there? Another uneventful day. Cockroach found some new clothes. Anyways, on day 64, they tried converting April, but it didn't work, and that was pretty much it. In anticipation of April converting to their beliefs, a new bedroom was erected for her and some doormats were placed down to help with dirt and grime. A nasty case of the flu hit a handful of the colonists the following day. They were going to have to sleep this off as best as they could. Frog, our least favorite fire-starting pawn, decided to start more fires. He's a real jerk, so Lausa beat him up. After kicking Frog's butt, the colony had a conversion ceremony for April, which seemed to go well. Her certainty plummeted and wasn't far from being their newest team member. The following day, the conversion worked for April, and they decided it was time to start recruitment efforts. Otherwise, colonists largely battled the flu. Somehow an armored zombie broke in without anyone noticing on the afternoon of day 69. Rego took him out easily with a few well-placed arrow shots, and the team quickly repaired the wall to keep other zombies from getting any funny ideas. And of course, Rego threw a party in honor of their 69th day because, well, you know. More zombies filtered in through the hole in the wall while they were partying, but Lausa hacked away at it until it collapsed. Sidonis came to help and peppered a few other zombies with bullets before prioritizing completing the wall segment. Before they could complete it, more zombies overwhelmed the gap and they had to fall back to safety. The colonists awoke the next morning to zombies wailing on the door to their inner expansion. Thankfully, they were able to erect another barrier so the zombies couldn't break through. Lots of major break risks, medical emergencies, and flu symptoms peppered the rest of the day, and Rochabella gained the kind trait that evening after all her caregiving. Frog's flu symptoms became extreme by day 71, and Rochabella kept a close eye on him as she researched. He just barely gained immunity as things were getting dire. Early the next morning, a pack of man-hunting grizzly bears started charging towards the base. The hole in the wall still hadn't been repaired yet, so the grizzlies easily gained access to their expansion. Thankfully, the silly grizzlies didn't know how to get through the intact wall. After only 72 days, the colony finally managed to finish their research in electricity. This was a huge moment for everyone, as it would mean all sorts of improvements to their base. They immediately started research on batteries to harness that sweet, sweet energy. Lausa went into labor on day 73, and a childbirth ceremony had begun. More Psycast levels for Cockroach also meant some additional points in his skill tree. After several hours, they decided to restart the childbirth, and Sidonis paced anxiously as it went from intense to debilitating for her. Finally, the baby's cries allowed a sigh of relief for the new parents as Guaca was born. Day 74 finally gave the colonists enough time to start building conduits to get their electricity up and running. They ran cable all through their storage area to turn it into a refrigerator, and also ran cables up to the bedrooms to keep the colonists cool come summer. Close to midnight, they realized that giant insects were quickly burrowing away towards their base. They needed to eradicate the hives or the problem would get out of control. They were going to have to make a plan of attack to mitigate as much damage the bugs would cause, but it was going to have to wait until later. For now, they had to rest. The colonists woke the following day to wasters from Venom lineup preparing to attack their base. They had little time until the assault started, so they inspected the raiders' gear, realizing they were all equipped with guns. Quickly, they opened up a funnel and attempt to draw in the raiders one at a time. As the assault began, everyone ran to the funnel and took up defensive positions. Frog and Lausa flanked the entryway and waited silently for their adversaries to arrive. Any second now they'd be coming through the... Oh no, they thought as the raiders completely ignored their death funnel and ran into the northwest. They must have found a better way in. Frog leapt out in an attempt to distract the enemies, and one fell for the bait. They quickly subdued him. Another raider came to back up their fallen comrade and was also quickly subdued by Lausa's club, Frog's knife, and Rochabella's archery. Thankfully, the other raiders decided to hightail it out of there, and the colonists went about looting their corpses for anything useful. The other members of the raid group engaged with the insects to the south. The colonists listened in horror as the bugs easily overcame the raiders. They were obviously a bigger threat than they realized. Frog also figured, hey, let's start more fires to celebrate a victory against the raiders. What a jerk. But he did quickly snap out of it and put his newborn outside to escape the heat. In the meantime, Regu got himself a wardrobe upgrade as more mechanoids landed not far to their west. A sunblocker was amongst them and would need to be dealt with or their crops would be starved for sunlight. The next night, a massive horde of zombies started working their way up the river to the west where the insects fell under the onslaught in no time. As they trudged up the river, the colonists realized at least one of the zombies had explosives strapped to its chest. Worried about the carnage the explosives would cause to their defenses, they had to sit and wait to see where the zombies were going to attack. The zombies actually attacked some visitors to the north while an armored zombie started burrowing through the walls in their southern perimeter. They had no defenses down there and could easily be overrun if the zombies got through, so they scrambled to at least lay down some spike tracks to slow the advances of the horde. Sidonis' hands were sweaty as he rushed to the trap construction, knowing the danger was just on the other side of the wall, and ended up botching construction on a few of the traps. Still, he was able to get enough erected to hopefully slow the zombies down when they inevitably broke through. Finally, the armored zombie cleared a hole in the wall and the colonists rushed down to defend their home. A second armored zombie had appeared, but they were able to at least dispatch the first wave. They patched the holes in the wall and waited for the next wave to break through. Despite carrying her newborn baby, Lausa went to join the fray as the colonists' endless stream of bullets were enough to take down the threat. The breach in their defenses was repaired and the threat was over, at least for now. Lausa decided another leader's speech was in order on the morning of day 77. The colony needed some encouragement after a stressful day yesterday. Even Cockroach paused his building of their wind turbines to go listen in. Lausa felt inspired on day 78 after a rousing speech from the day prior and would gain recreation twice as fast for a week. She also wanted to party. I mean, who doesn't in a zombie apocalypse? The colonists realized a potentially critical mistake as they were building enhancements to their base. While the recent zombie wave had cleared out the immediate insect threat, the hives were still intact and were birthing more of the hideous creatures. They kept it at the back of their mind as Lausa finished construction on an electric smelter. Day 79 brought more worries as the mega spider infestation continued to grow. The group decided it was high time to deal with the bugs. They all ran down, deconstructed a wall, and formed a defensive position to attack the bugs. They began firing from a safe distance, but the insectoids started charging at them. With the newborn bugs dispatched, they made the decision to eradicate the hives to prevent any further outbreaks. That should take care of them for now. Rochabella decided to throw a party to celebrate their win over the bugs, which just tickled Lausa. Cockroach tried to sleep through it to no avail. Lausa decided to sneak up on the dormant mechanoids on the dawn of their 80th day. The sunblocker needed to be dealt with. Frog joined her, and together they hacked and slashed at the turrets and the battery they were connected to. The blast from the battery lit up the morning as it exploded, and they were greeted with sunlight again as they destroyed the sunblocker. Both Lausa and Frog needed to get patched up after taking a few shots from the turrets, but Rego was there to help. Frog decided he'd had enough of the fire-starting sprees for now, and instead flew into a sadistic rage, venting his anger on their prisoners. Running into the prison cells, he punched April multiple times before leaving her to suffer. She was recaptured after the attack, and wouldn't you know it, Frog went back for more. Almost. He realized what he was doing and snapped out of it right as he got to the door and turned away. In the wee hours of day 81, a bulk's good trader showed up. This would be an excellent opportunity to stock up on supplies and sell their excess goods. But instead they decided not to, because why not? Louse and Cockroach contracted malaria by 8 a.m. that morning. Have to take the good with the bad, I suppose. There was also a short circuit that caused a fire not long after, but it was quickly put out. Rochabella finished her research on batteries the following day, and Lausa quickly constructed one to store excess power. Then she started researching air conditioning, which would greatly help with the brutally hot summer days. Lausa mined some additional components from some impacted machinery to their north. They would need as many as they could get for the improvements they planned. They also tweaked their prisoner setup to get April into cooler weather, so she didn't die of heat stroke while they continued trying to recruit her. Still needing more steel, multiple colonists got to work on mining some from their western flank on day 83. They'd reinforce the walls with sandstone later that evening too. 2 donkeys also decided to join their cause. A handler was assigned to keep them healthy, and a pen area was marked off. A new quest popped up on day 84. Wukog of the Moog tribe wanted to redirect an infestation towards the base, which would provoke 2 more hives that the colonists would need to deal with. The colonists had their fill of bugs recently though, and decided against accepting the quest. Sorry, Wukog. More zombies began pouring into the surrounding areas shortly before dawn. They aggressively took out a pack of ibexes not far away. Through Cockroach's fight with malaria, he had time for self-reflection and developed the fast learner trait. He would now pick up on things faster than others. Slothful plus fast learning ought to make for an interesting combo. Baby Tasca also became a child that morning. He could now do some basic activities around the camp to help out. About time he earned his keep. One of their new donkeys passed away that afternoon after being ravaged by zombies. They hadn't been able to bring them into the compound in time. Another armored zombie approached the camp the morning of their 85th day. Their fighters were drafted to await the incoming attack and all sprang into action to guard the wall the zombie was breaking through. As expected, the armored zombie found its mark and the wall crumbled under its immense weight. It was greeted by a hail of gunfire and was quickly no longer a threat. Sidonus rushed forward to repair the wall and keep them safe. Rego began working to replace their wooden walls with sandstone. With a pyromaniac in the group, they needed to be extra cautious of their encampment burning down. The sandstone would definitely help with that. Air conditioning research was finished on day 86, which would make it far easier to keep cool while getting out from under the Jugist sun. The colonists started installing AC units as another armored zombie threatened their eastern flank this time. The colonists planned out embrasures near the breach early on the morning of day 87. They'd be able to fire at their attackers from there if they could get it done in time. Lhasa raced up to finish the construction, and Sidonus began firing at their attackers from behind new cover. Nearby visitors had one of their own turn into a zombie, but on the bright side, he dropped a heavy submachine gun, which would definitely be useful. In the meantime, Rochabella decided to arrest Pierce, one of the visitors, and bring him back to the base. This angered the Illyria faction, and they were now hostile towards the group. The remaining visitors turned and exchanged volleys of gunfire with Rego as he took shelter behind a rock outcrop. The other visitors fled as Rego took down 2 of them. This was going to mean some human meat on the table soon after they butchered their fallen enemies, along with a few weapons that might come in handy. Pierce was determined to be a worthy sacrifice, so the ritual began. He was dragged kicking and screaming to the altar where he was bound to it. Cockroach chanted, and the other colonists looked on as the ritual ended Pierce. Matt, a political activist, reached out to join the colony. He had some very solid skills to contribute, though he was abrasive, which might upset other colonists as time went on. Regardless, he'd make a good farmer, artist, doctor, and handler for the crew. He ran for his life through the fields to reach the camp before the zombies caught him. Turns out, Pierce had some zombie run-ins that the other colonists were unaware of. He morphed into a powerful zombie early on the 88th day. Sidonus jumped out of bed to pump Pierce full of lead as he tried to break into April's room. That didn't last long. A group of raiders decided to try to attack while more than 70 zombies were in the surrounding areas. They were forced to scatter as zombies surrounded them, but their melee abilities proved to be formidable as they struck down wave after wave of undead. Rego came down with a case of sensory mechanites as the raiders inched closer to the base. Using their funnel idea from earlier, they opened the inner wall of their tree farm and invited zombies in one by one to get clobbered. Frog caught an unlucky club and went down from friendly fire. He should make a full recovery once rescued, though. The raiders, seeing the fierce opposition they faced, turned on their heels and fled. But the bodies of their fallen comrades were gathered for some super awesome fun sandwich time later. A visitor turned into a powerful zombie nearby in the afternoon of the 89th day, and they're dead. A refrigerator, a rec room, and some new beds were constructed on day 90. It had been a while since they've updated their lifestyle a bit. A heat wave struck, so they need to be cautious of heat strokes as well. They also decided to build some human leather armchairs around their poker table. Nothing like the cool feeling of human skin on your skin while you play cards. Not gonna lie, not too much happened on day 91. Cockroach promised April mercy on day 92 and finally added her to their growing list of colonists. She'd be a welcomed addition that would focus on mining and crafting, along with some research if she had time. The colonists also added some finishing touches to their new rec room while mining out the space for future expansions. The next 2 days were spent mostly just strip mining out the mountain for valuable resources, otherwise not a lot happened. Just after midnight on day 95, a wild Thrumbo became enraged after being harmed. Thrumbos were formidable opponents, and it took almost 10 zombies to suppress them. Another mechanoid landed nearby, which contained a psychic suppressor. This was going to cause depression for the ladies of the group, and it would need to eventually be dealt with. Meanwhile, Tasca ran for her life as a group of zombies surprised her towards their outer wall. Everyone jumped to attention to protect their child as fire broke out from an electrical malfunction. They opened the door to funnel in the zombies and riddled them with bullets from a safe distance. They repaired the wind turbine that had been destroyed along with the hole in the wall. More zombies popped up to the west, and the group rushed towards their tree farm to perform their favorite new funnel maneuver. The plan was foiled as an armored zombie broke down a wall right as they opened the door. Now they had zombies coming in from 2 directions. Guns blared, and Lausa's sword was stained with blood as they downed wave after wave of zombies. Again, they got close to repairing their defenses as Lausa, who caught the brunt of the attack, went to recover. That was the closest they'd been to being overrun, and they breathed a big sigh of relief as they began tending to Lausa. They surveyed the extent of Lausa's injuries on the morning of the 96th day at the colony. One of her bites had been infected, and she was going to need to have her arm amputated to prevent turning. Brigo brought over medicine and removed the infected limb from Lausa. Painful as it was, it had to be done. The swarm of zombies had grown to epic proportions and were beginning to worry the colonists. If over 300 zombies found their way in, they'd be in major trouble. Thankfully, their defenses were holding them at bay. For now. They pounded and scratched at the wall, but weren't making much of a dent. Sidonis built a quick embrasure and then began ripping shots at the wall of zombies in front of them to stem the flow as much as he could. More and more zombies felt his machine pistol as it glowed red hot. As it was getting late, he decided to turn in for the night and pray the zombies stayed put. Cockroach uses psi-casting powers to start regrowing Lausa's arm on the afternoon of the 97th day as a caravan was formed for Frog to go take care of the mech problem to their southwest. Archibella discovered a Galarian seed early on the 98th day. Planting it in one of their expansions would allow support for Dyrads. A tree connection ritual was performed immediately by Matt, who would then be in charge of pruning the tree. Matt decided to start making bark-skin Dyrads to help protect their colonists in battle. Late that night, more undead arose nearby and interior walls were reconstructed to keep them at bay. Frog arrived at the mech site and snuck in to destroy the psychic suppressor, while back home, Lausa went into a daze after her amputation. Frog started the journey back home on the morning of day 99, one more day until they reached their goal of 100 days. And finally, at long last, day 100 was upon them. Frog got into it with a warg on his way back to the base just as machining was finished being researched. This would allow them to craft better weapons for their colony amongst other things. They decided they would start researching gunsmithing next as it was a priority for survival. After celebrating such a huge milestone of reaching 100 days, the colonists decided to face the ancient danger just outside their walls on day 101. Zombies and mega spiders swarmed through the hole in the walls as the threats fought amongst themselves as well. Knowing they were distracted, the colony fighters rushed in to take advantage of the opportunity. Frog was hit by a stray bullet and lay bleeding on the ground as the rest of the threat was eliminated. With only one raider remaining, the colonists surrounded and dispatched her. Sidonis had also been wounded and needed to be rescued alongside Frog. We can only wonder what would become of our colonists from here. Will they continue to build and expand their colony, or would they try to escape this zombie-filled Rimworld? Only time would tell, but that's a story for another day. I hope you enjoyed this video. Special thanks to all my patrons who help support the channel so I can make more videos like this. I really appreciate you. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, have a good one.